Nancy Kaffer, columnist with the Detroit News. Nancy, it's good to see you. It's great to see you in person, and I think really that's the feeling that we're having here at Mackinac today is we're all back in the same space.
Yes, we are, though I will note I am a columnist at the Detroit Free Press.
Oh my God, did I say Detroit News?
You did say Detroit News.
Oh my God, so I think you should fire me. I've already screwed up day one, but it's great to see you. Of course, the Detroit Free Press.
Yeah, Detroit Free Press, where I've been for, hopefully we'll continue to be.
Exactly.
So yes, it is nice to be here together again. It is a little strange. I think none of us are quite sure, where do we wear a mask? Where do we not wear a mask? How many people is too many people to stand next to? It still feels like we're negotiating this new world.
And I think it's also networking, practice networking, and actually coming back out and speaking to people and getting a sense of where people are. It's a different world. We have a lot of the same issues that we want to talk about here in the state of Michigan, but in starting to re-immerse and engaging in those conversations, a little different.
Right, absolutely. And I forgot how to do small talk personally, so I'm like, hello, how are you? I am a person who is here. How are you? Yeah.
But the Chamber will talk about, though, the importance of being face-to-face and having this kind of gathering. You have covered now how many policy conferences?
Gosh.
Probably like the last 6 years or so, 5 years?
11, I think.
Okay.
11.
Where would you, I guess, put this year, again, smaller amount of people up here on the island, but importance in terms of gathering people in the same space?
Well, I think it is important because if we've learned anything over the course of this pandemic is that going into hunker down crisis mode is not a sustainable long-term strategy. We thought at the beginning of this summer maybe we were going to be back to normal as the vaccine became widely available. We found out a lot of folks weren't willing to get the vaccine, and then the Delta variant popped up and created a whole new wrinkle in our public health and personal health management. And I think where I'm at now is that we're going to keep seeing these changes come that we can't predict. And we have to figure out how to operate in a world where we manage the virus like we do other risks. And so the Chamber has required attendees to be vaccinated, which I totally applaud. I would not have come if people were not required to be vaccinated here. I see a lot of people in the hotel wearing masks. These are sensible mitigation strategies that we know work. And we have to start figuring out how to be together, because I don't think the virus is going to go away, and we do have to see each other face to face. We have to connect. We have to have conversations. That's how we move things forward.
And we may not see those lockdowns again that we experienced within the first 8, 10, 12 months of the virus. So we're operating in a bit of a different space. You and I were talking a little bit earlier. The Chamber has also done this where you can wear a wristband. It's either red, yellow, or green in terms of engaging with people. So the yellow one is, essentially you can come up, fist bump, elbow bump, whatnot. Don't give me a hug, but we can kind of engage in the same space.
Right. I mean, the red one seems very aggressive, like stay away from me. It's keep 6 feet away. The green one, I don't ever really want random people coming up to hug me. So I don't really want to fist bump anyone either, but the yellow means like you can kind of like talk to me and I'm not going to leap away, but I'm also, I'm cool with the no hugs.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of the biggest issues that Michigan is facing as a state. We have talked about education for years. We have talked about workforce development. We have talked about retaining talent. We've talked about growing the city of Detroit. All of those things are still on the table, are still huge projects, but now coming off of 18 months of pandemic and maybe disinvestment, you've got workers who are now working at home. You've got businesses saying, will we ever go back into the office? Where would you say that Michigan, when you kind of shake things out and you look at where things stand, what are the things that come to the forefront for you when you're writing?
Well, education is always really, really, really top of mind. Education and Detroit are the two things that I probably write the most about. And we have to really understand how our children have been harmed during the pandemic. Lucky, privileged, middle-class children like mine struggled badly during the pandemic. And so you take away my advantages and imagine what the situation is for children that don't have those advantages. We need to really be able to put funding and resources into helping kids who have been done a vast disservice with virtual schooling, with the just disrupted year. No one had a normal year, even kids in face-to-face school. They had quarantines, they had illness in the community. We have to figure out how to help all those kids catch up. There's federal funding, so there's money on the table. We just have to decide to spend it in the right way.
Okay, but what does that mean, spending it in the right way? Are we spending it in the right places? Is it going to be for wraparound services, more counselors in the school, community health even outside the school to help with families? What does that mean when we say investment?
EdTrust Midwest came out with a report, I think just last week,
Yeah,
that really detailed some of those things, where wraparound services, tutoring, tiered funding to help children from disadvantaged circumstances catch up. So there's no shortage of recommendations about how to spend education funding. We've had at least a dozen, probably closer to 20 reports just in the last 4 or 5 years.
I would say, yeah.
And they all make essentially the same basic recommendations, which is more support for pre-K and early childhood literacy, more support for teachers, and tiered funding, because it costs different amounts of money to educate different kinds of students. This was all pre-pandemic. The EdTrust Midwest report that came out recently is post-pandemic, obviously. But the recommendations it makes, with the exception of tutoring and things like that for kids who need to catch up, these are very consistent recommendations found by group after group, regardless of ideology, for years. So we have a pretty solid slate of recommendations. Hasn't lit a fire under the legislature yet, but maybe this is the year.
Hopefully it's the year. I mean, it feels like the legislature has a lot of shiny things to dart and look at and that will capture their attention. Other thing that I'm thinking about when we talk about K-12 education is facilities and some of the aging infrastructure, especially in the city of Detroit, the Detroit Public Schools Community District, and the millions of dollars that they want to put towards upgrading all of the buildings in the system.
Yeah, that is it's so shocking and horrible that this is even a question, whether we as a state should support the school district that serves the largest population of children in our state. Both from an altruistic angle, because they're children and the people who are their parents and their family members love them as much as you, the viewer, love your children. And they deserve to have sound, intact buildings to learn in. But what we do here is we put these children into very bad circumstances, and then as they become adults, they're judged for not performing extraordinary efforts in subpar circumstances, which, again, it's a real crappy situation that we do here. We have to change that. But that's on an altruistic level, because it's the right thing to do because we're humans. But on a completely pragmatic level, you alluded to jobs earlier. You hear things now from employers that they can't find people to apply for jobs. When they do find people, that they lack basic skills. People almost never seem to make the connection between we don't invest appropriately in education, we don't ensure that children are graduating with the skills they need to hold jobs. So, we've got to get those things. We've got to get those things going on.
Another thing, just really quickly up here, politics. We're going to hear from the governor and we're going to hear from Mayor Mike Duggan. And those are just the two big political figures who will be speaking up here and speak up here, every year that we have Mackinac. But we haven't heard the governor up here at this conference since 2019 when she first took office. What are you expecting to hear, Nancy? I am really curious to hear what she has to say. For the first year of the pandemic, we had a governor who very aggressively engaged in managing it, didn't hesitate to use public health orders, didn't hesitate to make what seemed like the right call based on science, and then she has become a lot more hands-off since vaccines have been available. So do you think that is what has been impacting the poll numbers? Because both you and I were talking about the poll that just came out, the Detroit Regional Chamber Commission, saying 48% approve of her job, 46% disapprove.
Right, and that shift comes from independents who, the pollster who did the Richard Schuba of the Glengarriff Group, noted to me last year in a previous poll that what was so unusual is in that poll where she had a much higher approval rating, independents were in lockstep with Democrats. Now she's lost support among independents. Now what's changed? A big thing would be her handling of the pandemic. So I don't know if that is what is showing up here, but that is certainly a strong contender.
Mayor Mike Duggan running for his third term, and he always puts on a very good and very well-received presentation up here at Mackinac.
He sure does. And, interesting, he's not going to debate the challenger, former Detroit Deputy Mayor Anthony Adams. So this may be one of the only big public speeches of his before the election. So it's going to be interesting to hear what he has to say. This is obviously not necessarily a Detroit voter-heavy crowd, but he has, historically delivered an address that is very more, sometimes eye-opening for the audience here.
All right. Nancy Kaffer, columnist with the Detroit Free Press. It's always good to see you up here on the island and in person, and we'll take these next couple of days, and it'll be good to kind of get your sense of what's going on up here.
Great. It's good to see you, Christy.